Hi, this is Heather Freer, and this is an introduction to my WebQuest Red, White, and Blue Poetry. This WebQuest is intended for 9th to 12th grade English language arts classes, and it is a WebQuest that deals with the analysis of poetry, the discussion of poetry with peers, and the writing of poetry by students. This states that in this WebQuest, students will explore different poems, focusing on the idea of what it means to be an American, and they will also begin a poem of their own that explores this topic. Here in my introduction, I've stated there's always been debate in our nation about what it means to be an American, and students are going to explore this through poetry. They'll discuss the poems with each other, which is a great way to get them to kind of discuss the topic, and then they'll have a chance to express themselves through starting to write a poem of their own. I've included a link down here to a video of 3 high school students reciting a poem that they have written, and it's a pretty powerful poem, and I think it'll get them fired up and ready to read more and hopefully to start thinking about their own poem. Okay, next in our task. Our task states that the students have become part of an election committee. They're choosing the winner of a new national award, the American National Poet Award. There are 5 judges and 5 poets, and judging will happen based on a single poem by each candidate. As judges, the students don't have any other information about the criteria, about how they're judging these poems or how they're giving out this award. So it leaves a lot of room for them to really explore that concept of what it is to be an American and how these poets are expressing this. It also states that in order to have their vote counted as a judge and justify their place on the election committee, they'll have to write 5 lines of their own on what it is to be an American. Okay, we go next into the process. And here in the process, it states that the students are going to be placed into groups of 5, and they'll be given copies of a poem analysis chart. There's a link down here to the poem analysis chart that can be printed out. It gives instructions about how to print that out. There are 5 different criteria areas that they can explore the idea of being an American through these poems. And then there are links to each of the 5 poems. So they'll click on each of those. They'll fill out their chart, and then they'll move to task 2. And in task 2, they'll come back into their groups, and they'll each have 5 minutes to present their argument about who should be named this first American national poet. They will present their first, second, and third place winners and defend those and why the other 2 poems did not place. After those 5 minutes, then their peers will have a chance to question them about that, and peers will need to take notes about this and about their questions. In step 2, after the debate, they're going to go ahead and make their final choice and fill out a completed ballot. They're going to have a maximum of 2 sentences in this ballot to defend their choices, and they're also going to analyze each other as judges in this, so that there's some accountability there. Then they'll move into task 3, and in task 3 there are 3 different parts, and this is the poetry writing part of the task. They're going to write their 5 lines, and then they'll come back in part 2 into the groups, and they can either read their poem out loud or they can pass the poem around the group and they can read those poems silently. I've instructed that all feedback in this portion is going to be positive, because this is a pretty exposed part of the WebQuest, a pretty vulnerable part, and so students can give that feedback orally or in written form. And then part 3 simply states that all of their written work, including the rubric and the notes that they've taken in the debate and their final ballots and the poems, are going to be handed in at the end of this WebQuest. And then the teacher will come back into the class and announce the 3 top winners from each group, which I think will be interesting and will inspire some more discussion. Then we go to the evaluation part. And in this rubric, there is a place for evaluating the poem and how the students did with that. And then 2 different places where they're talking about the judging portion, that task 2. So there's the panel presentation, and then there's the judging panel observation and response and the final ballot. And the final part of the rubric is with the poem writing challenge and how they do with that. And here in the conclusion, it states that poetry has a lot of power to convey feelings and to spark deep thinking about subjects that range from the emotional to the political and social. So I think the students will hopefully have gone through a pretty big process in this. This is an involved WebQuest. It takes a minimum of about 3 days, and will really hopefully get them going and give them some license to really start writing poetry of their own. Okay, and then here on my teacher page, there are the standards and credits, and then there's some links for teachers to get going in other ways with poetry in their class. Some really wonderful programs, Poetry Out Loud, and teachers' real-world experience of incorporating that into her classroom. And that's it. Thank you for watching.